Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Last Call Fantasy Football Podcast with your host, me, Paul Clement, and my co-host, Bobby Briscoe. Bobby, how are we doing to this evening, the evening of March 16th, St. Patrick's Day Eve?
St. Patrick's Day Eve. I'm doing good. It's the first official day of March break here, so had a good day. Enjoy being off. Got some stuff done around the house, and excited to talk about some football here now.
Yeah, and I know I asked offline briefly, but do you have any big plans or anything going on during this week of the break?
Nothing crazy this week. Just kind of hanging around the house, getting some things done, and just enjoying being off. Got out skiing yesterday for some last turns of the winter, and have some other fun get-togethers planned with some teaching friends who are also off. So should be a good, quiet little break.
Excellent, man. Happy to hear it. I forgot to mention earlier, like tomorrow is actually my buddy Eric Watchman's birthday as well. So we tend to make a bit of a day of it. I think we're doing a virtual golf. It's called Pace of Play around 10 a.m. And then I think we're doing a steak lunch, and then we're doing Irish pub if we can get into it. So
Nice, nice.
it'll be a bit of a
Good.
day, and I have to remain somewhat responsible. I do like I got to get the daughter to and from camp this week, and Melissa's going to be in the office, so responsibility
Fair.
is not going to be shirked tomorrow. Um, but yeah, great episode, everyone. Hopefully you're ready to break down another division with us. Today we're going to be doing the NFC East. So Bobby and I will be talking about all the moving pieces that have gone on in this offseason so far for the NFC East teams. And I'm going to ask Bobby's opinion on some of the biggest free agency moves that we were not able to discuss last week. So we'll digest that a little bit, and we'll get into the NFC East. But with all that said, it's last call, everyone. Cheers. Bobby, one thing I've been meaning to do, and it's slipped my mind literally every single episode that we've done together and every episode I've done by myself, is actually break down our beverages that we decide to have on a given episode. So, I'm using my go-to. Grolsch is a good old Dutch beer, Pilsner Lager, that my brothers and I tend to frequent and tend to prefer when it comes to a cheap but distinct beer flavor.
Distinct is how I would describe it. That's
Yeah.
good. I have a clean cut Kolsch style beer from a local brewery here in Ottawa called Beyond the Pale. One of my favorite breweries in Ottawa here, and this particular beer is one that they always have in their rotation, and it's one of my go-tos. It's a very good beer in terms of your craft beers that you can get. One of my favorites, one of my go-tos here in Ottawa. So we're actually, we mentioned this earlier, but at the suit fitting for my wedding that we have coming up here in about a month or so, we'll be heading there for dinner afterwards. So looking forward to that. Should be good.
Yes, and I think over the years of us hanging out, I think I've partaken in one or two of those, and it is I can definitely say it is a quality pint. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the suit fitting. It's going to be a great event. Before we get into your digest of the free agency frenzy, maybe we could just quickly run through some of this news, and some of it will fold into our conversation as a whole. But Darnell Mooney to the Giants, I think, is a savvy move. He has always
Mhm.
been a quality number two receiver, and he'll slot right in to next to Malik Neighbors. You can push Darius Slayton into that number three role or a deep like field stretching role, which is what he's really good at. And then of course you have all the plethora of underneath weapons in Theo Johnson, Isaiah Likely, the running back room, however that shakes out. So it is starting to shape up the offense there in New York.
A lot of things to be excited about for them. New coaching coming in as well. Cam Scatterby coming off of injury, and he was talking today. Apparently, he is close to back, which I don't know. He seemed like he was ready to come back and keep running a week after surgery with how insane that guy is. But yeah, a lot to be excited for if you're a Giants fan. We'll get into that a little bit more later, I think. But
Yeah, we'll deal with them when we get into our breakdown. Another piece of news that broke this morning actually is Justin Fields going to Kansas City in a trade. I think it was a 6th-round pick for him to end up in Kansas City. We talked offline briefly about this, Bobby, but what are your initial thoughts when it comes to a move like this for Kansas City?
I really like this for Kansas City. This is a really good move for them and a good move for Justin Fields too, I think. This reminds me a lot of when the Packers brought in Malik Willis as a backup to Jordan Love. Fields is a guy who, well, he hasn't quite achieved what his capabilities or his potential was when he was drafted 5 or 6 years ago, or however long ago that was. I think he can certainly slot into that system in Kansas City and find some success there. I mean, the coaching and the caliber of team that he'll be receiving there is higher than in a lot of places he's landed in his career so far, to say the least. And I think from Kansas City's perspective, it gives them somebody who has an amount of potential, amount of competence to fill in for Patrick Mahomes while he's working his way back from this injury that he's coming off of right now. And if anything was to happen to him in the future, it's nice to have a little bit more of a secure safety net for them. So I think it's a good move for both sides.
Yeah, I think he's a nice upside pickup to fill in that quarterback room. They needed a backup quarterback with Gardner Minshew departing as well. So yeah, you get the athletic upside of a Justin Fields who perhaps learns a thing or two from Patrick Mahomes in terms of his process, his work ethic, maybe develops as a passer, as a backup without the pressure of being a starter. I mean, I think the Jets are still fronting $20 million of his salary, so that's not a bad situation for him to be in a good building with probably the best situation, like you mentioned, while he can fill in as Patrick Mahomes rehabs that ACL injury. So I think that is a little bit telling. Like maybe the Chiefs aren't as confident that Patrick Mahomes will be ready for Week 1, but if Justin Fields, who has many starts under his belt at this point, is able to fill in for a week or two, or who knows how long, then I think it's a good pickup by them, a savvy pickup for a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, for little cost, right? And yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there too. This to me says that Mahomes is probably not on track to be ready Week 1. So we'll see how it turns out.
We'll see how it turns out.
A lot of time between now and September, but
yeah. And the final little bit of news that came in this afternoon is Christian Kirk heading off to the San Francisco 49ers. So while the 49ers are not getting any younger, they are adding some pass catching options to an offense that hasn't had a really healthy receiving room in quite some time. So yeah. I do like this signing.
Yeah, I think depth is the name of the game here. They were so burned by injuries last year that just adding more bodies and more depth to that offensive core is something that they really need to have. I do like your point that it's not getting them any younger at all. And that, risk of injury when you have these older players, CMC is another year older as well, right?
So, and a power station.
Yeah. It's it's a roll of the dice, but having said that, I think should everybody be healthy, they've put themselves in a position where they have assembled a pretty strong squad there. So
yeah,
we'll see if they can stay healthy.
I do like it. So let's get into your biggest, I guess, your favorite moves of the free agent frenzy. If not favorite, at least the ones that have the biggest talking points. And if you wanted to hear my specific breakdown of a lot of these, that would be on the previous episode. But I do want to bounce ideas back and forth with you, Bobby, and just see what your thoughts are on some of these big moves.
Well, the one I wanted to start with is one that we talked about a couple podcasts ago when we did our NFC North breakdown, is the situation in Minnesota with quarterback and Kyler Murray. So
yes, Yeah, you run with it, man. You run with it.
I was just gonna say, we mentioned, a lot of the different options that they were looking at in terms of, what do you think of JJ McCarthy and where are you at with him? And I think we said that if you're not confident in him, then you're bringing in someone like a Kyler Murray. Well, this is now a reality in which we find ourselves. So I think it's a big question mark now. Are they looking to maybe even trade JJ McCarthy? Are
Hmm.
we looking to have both of them in the room competing for a job? I think this is like it's a answer to our question, but it's invited further questions about what's going on in Minnesota.
Well, so those are all those are all really, really good points, and I've touched on some of them myself on the previous episode. So I want to ask you this question that I wasn't able to answer or ask myself last time, and that is, if Kyler Murray was so gosh darn stinking awful that they had to run him out of town in Arizona, and he was not able to provide fantasy value for Trey McBride, provide fantasy value for Marvin Harrison, like Jacoby Brissett steps in and automatically the receiving options are all performing fantasy wise for varying degrees. So when I had this conversation with Eric, I asked, you would be excited about a Kyler Murray going to Minnesota? Like you'd feel good about Justin Jefferson and those weapons there? And he seemed optimistic because I guess it's all in perspective, right?
Well, yeah, and I think the thing that gives me optimism is a guy by the name of Kevin O'Connell. And I think that is the X factor there that makes me more comfortable and optimistic about Kyler Murray in Minnesota. Is O'Connell has had a lot of success in that offense. That offense is going to do its thing. That offense is going to get the ball to JJ. And I think they're bringing in Kyler Murray because they have a plan for him and they feel that he can achieve that, right? And maybe they're thinking about the Murray to D Hop connection that used to exist with the Cardinals. So
Well, yeah,
uh, that could be the thought, but
in
it's I'm not saying I'm 100% confident.
yeah, I think schematically, it's probably a better fit, right? Like Kevin O'Connell, he's drawing up these plays to get these like hole shots deep downfield, work the middle of the field, and while that's not Kyler Murray's like bread and butter, perhaps Kevin O'Connell can unlock that from him. That's going to be something that we have to wait and see on. I do like Kyler Murray. When you think about his success, it's scrambling around, creating, being creative, and then taking deep shots downfield. So it's definitely going to be different, a different prototype that Kevin O'Connell's working with here. I I think we could sit here and debate all night, like what is this going to look like? What is it going to be? Is there going to be some marriage between Kevin O'Connell and Kyler Murray? Because I think there was something like when Kyler Murray was in Arizona, I think at least last season or whatever the sample size was, he was under center 14% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Kevin O'Connell's offense over the past two seasons, the quarterback has been under center like 51% of the time or whatever the number was. So Kyler Murray, being as short as he is, does have to work out of the shotgun probably more often. He has to be able to get that ball and be able to survey the field because he can't see everything when he's behind that huge offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
There's again, it's another talking point that I think we could probably sit here and debate all night long. We're just gonna have to see what Kevin O'Connell can cook up for him.
Yeah, and I'm not going to undersell Kevin O'Connell's ability to cook up something for him, right? To be adaptable and to adjust to the piece that he has here now. Um, I think JJ is still JJ, and that's the one thing to remember if you're worried about fantasy value. I think he's still going to get his, and this is something where they're going to be scheming to get him the ball. So I wouldn't be too worried about your JJ pick if you're grabbing him sometime in and about the first round of a
Okay.
fantasy draft. But I am very curious to see where this goes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned that because my next question would have been something like, would you take Justin Jefferson in the first round of a redraft or a dynasty startup? And it sounds like you still feel pretty confident with him in that back half. of the first round.
If you're getting him in the back half of the first round, then I think you're fine. If he's sliding to you in the second round, I think you are smiling.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Your next point that you wanted to touch on here is Romeo Doubs headed to the Pats for, I think it was a 4-year extension.
Mhm.
You know, NFL contracts, they're never really what they look like, but a decent chunk of change for a Romeo Doubs type to go to the Pats. What stuck out here for you?
I mean, it's a player that I am fairly deeply familiar with being a Packers fan. I am curious about how far what this does with fantasy value, to be quite honest. Purely looking at the fantasy here. How relevant of a fantasy asset is Romeo Doubs now that he's on the Pats? Because the big issue that I always had with him as a Packer is in that Packers wide receiver room, is he going to be the guy that gets the ball? So how much of a target share is going to be carved out for him on the Pats? Is it going to be the same kind of uses as Stefon Diggs had? Is it going to be more? I'm curious your thoughts as a Pats fan.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to shed some light. I think when I broke it down last episode, I think what I said was I like him as a Stefon Diggs plus, right? Like Stefon Diggs, for whatever he is or was a aged receiver coming off an injury, but still produced in an offense that was not catered to him. But I think their target shares were similar last year. Like Stephon Diggs got 21, 22% target share. Dobbs, I believe, had 22% target share with the Green Bay Packers. But to your point, like both of these offenses like to distribute the ball to multiple playmakers, and let the offense kind of do its thing without focusing through a single option. I don't think they're bringing Dobbs in to be their 1A and they're going to stick up, but he can run a lot of routes and he's a good outside receiver. He can play out of the slot. That gives you versatility. Uh, I mean, it's an up. I think he's an upgrade over a lot of what they have there right now. Like when you look at the roster and it's Kayshon Boutte and it's Pop Douglas and it's Mac Hollins. Like those guys are all very specific role players where I like Dobbs as an ambiguous receiver that can be used in a variety of ways. Plus, I mean, he's not just a slot guy, which is what Stefon Diggs was for them this past season, working out of the slot, quick routes, beats man coverage, and Dobbs can do that fairly consistently as well. So I,
Mm-hmm.
I like him. I like him in any role they decide to put him in, and I think he'll succeed. And I'm just happy to see it. Like I remember us talking about this guy during our first rookie draft so many years ago where you were
Mm-hmm.
excited to get Christian Watson at the back end of the first round. I was like, well, I got the real receiver one in Green Bay and Romeo Dobbs, and that never turned out to be true. But he is
Turns out neither of them really were wide receiver ones in Green Bay.
totally fair.
Yeah.
But I
Are
do.
you are you drafting him in a we'll leave dynasty aside because in a dynasty league he's going to get drafted, of course, but
Yeah,
in a redraft league, let's say you're in a 10 or a 12 man redraft league, are you looking to have him as part of your wide receiver group?
I think so. I think in this environment with the quarterback and the lack of weapons right now, I do think the Patriots are going to add something else, whether it's a pass catcher or a different offensive weapon this offseason. So we'll have to see who that ends up being. But at the end of the day, he slots in as a low end wide receiver two, high end wide receiver three, and that puts him for me in the like between 7 and 9, like the seventh and ninth rounds of a
Yeah,
fantasy draft is where I would feel comfortable taking him.
that seems reasonable. I think big question mark is if the Pats do more because I could see them looking to continue to add to what they have there and maybe pick up another piece with a draft pick.
Absolutely, would not be surprised. Okay, I did. So I mentioned this, and I guess you want to have a little conversation about the big drama that happened last week between Max Crosby and the Ravens and the Raiders. I didn't really want to touch on it because everyone else has kind of had their 2 cents on it. But let's get into it here. And what are your thoughts on this whole debacle?
I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least weigh in on this a little bit because this has been, I think, the most interesting story of the offseason for me. Yeah, so Max Crosby gets traded to the Raiders for boatload of picks coming back. A couple days later, oops, sorry, take backsies. Apparently, the Raiders say we're pulling back on the deal, and then it felt like within minutes, announcing that they are picking up Trey Hendrickson. I found that to be a very, very interesting sequence and series of events. Good for the Raiders, who are getting a player who is maybe not as good as Max Crosby, but fills a similar role for sure, and maybe almost as well as Crosby does, presuming Crosby's healthy, of course, which sounds like he's not. And they get to keep their picks as well. So very interesting situation. Max Crosby, I guess, has tweeted out recently that he is committed to being a Raider again now. So I guess he's staying put. But what do you think, Paul? What are your thoughts on this whole sequence and series of events that unfolded?
My initial instinct was, to be honest, I didn't really have an initial instinct. I guess I wasn't surprised, and I wasn't. I guess when you really break it down, the question that everybody wants answered that no one is ever going to have answered is, was this nefarious by the Ravens?
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew that Max Crosby had had knee surgery a month or two ago, so he was not ready to get physically passed regardless. So unless their doctors went in there or did an MRI and said, "Wow, this is actually much worse than even what it should be," then that's the only like medical
Mm-hmm.
red flag I can think that they would raise for them to pull the plug on it. But the domino effect of them having made that trade for 2 first-round picks to get Max Crosby and take on that contract, all these other pieces fell into place over the course of that weekend, where other
Mm-hmm.
players were getting, they were getting tampered with, and they were getting deals done and figured out, and all that happens, and then they pull the rug out, day 2 of the free agency period. So like
It's
the
like
rest the
they
rest of the
knocked
league's
over the
pissed.
dominoes, and then they went and plucked their domino up off the top of the stack and said, "Yeah, yoink."
And
Sorry about that,
and
guys.
of course it looks crappy because they just basically looked at it and said, okay, we just gave away 2 first round picks, and we have to pay this guy 35 million plus. Oh, no one picked up Trey Hendrickson yet. He's only worth 35 million dollars a year, but we don't have to give up any picks. That's where I think it looks super shady.
It looks super sus. Now, the one thing I'm wondering about with all of this, and this is where we can speculate, and we probably won't know until 20 years from now when somebody writes a book or something. Were they trying to get both? Was there a world where they were trying to land both of these guys on their team?
The thing I heard was that when the Ravens were talking to Trey Hendrickson, he was under the assumption that they were going to get Max and then him. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody in the Ravens organization had let him know that they were trying to get both. And when you look at how bad their pass rush has been from the edges ever since like Terrell Suggs retired, it really has not
Mm-hmm.
been good. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to make a move like that. In the end, they end up with just the one. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But this is a draft loaded with defensive talent and edge rushing talent, even. So now they've got their picks back.
Yeah,
Let's see what they do
and
with those picks now.
they can use that on whoever's at 14, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, to your point, I don't know. I I I I'm one of those people who realizes the more you think you know something, the more you really should know that you don't know anything. So I'm not going to know, or I'm not going to care about anything that goes on. I just want, my brother always comes to me and says, "Hey, have you heard this rumor?" I'm like, "Man, I don't want to talk about rumors. I want to hear about final decisions." And like, that's when things are finalized, then we can talk about it. No point in talking about rumors. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is a rumor mill of a situation. And at the end of the day, the Ravens look after themselves. They get their 2 first round picks back. They get an edge rusher, and Max Crosby, for better or worse, ends up back on the Raiders.
Yep. And you know who's still feeling very plucked about this whole thing? Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah, I mean Trey Hendrickson coming down on Joe Burrow during the season twice a year.
Mhm.
That's still not great.
Oh no, Max Crosby. Oh phew, no Max Crosby. Oh no, Trey, buddy, what the hell?
The guy that knows me probably the best on the Bengals defense over the last 6 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a weird scenario. And I don't have a lot to say about it. I'm actually happy for the Raiders. Like the Raiders can probably look at their team now and be like, we made all these pickups in free agency. Sure, we don't get 2 first-round picks, but we're still going to draft Fernando Mendoza. We
Mhm.
have good draft capital throughout the rest of the draft now. They should feel pretty good. Maybe their defense is actually admirable with a Max Crosby back
Mhm.
and probably more motivated than ever.
Yeah, I think a winner out of this is the Raiders in terms of being able to get Crosby back. Again, this is all presuming Crosby can play, because maybe again, totally above board, the Raiders got in there and looked at that injury and said, "No, this guy's kind of done." So we'll see how that shakes out, but. Yeah, Raiders could be a low key winner out of all this.
I mean, Max Crosby always said he wanted to retire a Raider, so maybe that's what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen now, and he'll finish as
Yeah.
a league legend, right? The
Mm-hmm.
the next point you had here was you wanted to talk about Mike Evans, and I see you probably added in Christian Kirk here as like another receiver type they brought in for the
Mm-hmm.
49ers. Anything you want to talk about there?
I think we've already mainly covered it in that talk we did about Christian Kirk earlier, but yeah, no, San Francisco's looking pretty good here for this coming year in terms of the depth that they've added at wide receiver, especially.
The comp I heard that I really like was you can almost imagine an AJ Green on the Cardinals type of performance. So
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at about between 700 and 800 yards, probably looking at a you know half dozen to more touchdowns. So decent pickup.
Mm-hmm.
They have been missing that type, and Juwan Jennings has performed admirably, but he really is not that ball winner X type that they've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
finally, go
no,
ahead, man. You want to talk about the Panthers' defensive upgrades?
yeah, interesting moves out of the Panthers. I kind of like what they've done here. So Jalen Phillips, Devin Lloyd, they've dropped some money on the defensive side of the ball. I think really good moves for them. They're a team that is not one that anyone's really picking to make huge flashes this year. But I think they've subtly gotten quite a bit better, and they've done some things to shore up some holes that existed on their team. There's a lot of work for them to do yet. A lot of question marks. Their O line, they've done some work to improve it. But still a lot of question marks on the O line there. We'll see how they fare this year, but I think they're a team to kind of keep an eye on a little bit right now, and definitely are trending in the right direction. I think.
Yeah, they went from a historically bad defense to I think they were bottom of the 20s, but that's an improvement. Like if you go from
Mhm.
the 32nd defense to the 27th defense in an offseason with a couple moves, I think all these moves make them probably another bunch of slots upwards, right? Like for a division that is so wide open as the NFC South, these like
Mhm.
minor tweaks are sometimes all you really need
Yep.
to bolster your roster.
They've made themselves relevant. I would say,
I
and
mean,
that's
they won them.
also
They got to the playoffs last year.
well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You're not wrong.
Yeah,
um, more, I mean that more in the conversation of the total NFL, and more than in just in terms of their division. But that's something to keep an eye on too when you look at fantasy assets. Right? Is the assets on relevant teams do tend to have a little bit more value, right? And if the defense is getting the offense onto the field more, that's going to float all the boats for the offensive players in the system too. So.
that's a very good point. You want players on winning football teams that can't score a lot of points or prevent. I got to be careful what I say here because if you have a really bad defense, then your offense is like shooting from the hip the rest of the game. So it's a bit of a push and pull there, but I do like the idea of the defense getting better so that the offense has more, you know,
Mhm.
opportunities over the course of a game and a season
Mhm.
to get their points.
Well, and especially if you're looking at role of a running back, right? If you're getting blown out all the time, then the running back's not going to have a whole heck of a lot to do, because you're going to have to be shooting from the hip and throwing bombs downfield, right? Which low percentage might work, might not. Whereas if you're in games and you're able to establish that run game, well, now the running back's getting work, right?
Absolutely. So how do you feel about Chuba Hubbard now that Rico Dowdle's a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Oh, way better. I think this is kind of the capstone to this conversation. Is I think this all improves Chuba Hubbard's stock quite a bit, and I'm feeling a lot more confident about drafting Chuba Hubbard now than I was prior to this free agency shakeout.
Yeah, they have Trevor Etienne in the backfield as basically the only other running back.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Brooks, we can't forget about him, who's apparently recovering really well. And of course, this is all just hearsay until we actually see him on the field. But second round pick for them, I guess it would have been 2 years ago now, that he was drafted, and unfortunately retore that ACL. And it's an injury that's tough to come back from. But I think they are. Unless they bring someone else in through the draft, they're probably going to be very confident rolling with Chuba Hubbard, Trevor, and who did I just say? Jonathan Brooks.
Jonathan Brooks,
and
yeah.
Sprinkle him in and keep his knee fresh, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Appreciate your thoughts on those things, Bobby. We're going to take a quick break here, everybody, and then we'll get into our NFC East breakdown. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are ready to get into our NFC East breakdown for the 2026 season. So we'll talk about some free agent moves, where they're drafting in the NFL draft, and some of the moves that we can expect to make, or what we should be looking for in the offseason as we march towards kickoff in September. So we're going to start with the division leader here, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles. They, reasonably so, are pressed pretty close up to the cap, and weren't able to make a lot of free agency moves, but they do bring in a Reek Woolen to help add some bodies and some athleticism to that secondary. They did lose Reed Blankenship, who I believe was their safety of theirs, who was an impact player for them this past season. It does sound like they are working on re-signing Dallas Goedert, which I thought was interesting. I thought for sure he would be a casualty of the wealth of riches that they have in Philadelphia, but it does sound like they're moving towards re-signing him. What are your thoughts, Bobby?
He's just the safety net. He is the absolute safety blanket there. Can you imagine going to Hurts and saying that we are going to let go the guy who you trust the most in a clutch situation to toss the ball to? I don't think that's going to work.
Career high in touchdowns and I don't think it was a career high in yards or anything like that, but he did end up being a huge red zone threat for the Philadelphia Eagles, much to the chagrin of anyone who owned Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown. But,
well, yes.
But I think the one, and this blends really nicely into our next talking point, which is A.J. Brown. But I think the fact that they are looking at re-signing Goedert is a bit of a hint that they are probably going to move A.J. Brown. Maybe not soon, but from what I've heard, his contract is infinitely more easy to move after June 1st. So if they sign Dallas Goedert to a deal, does that make A.J. Brown more likely to be traded or dealt, over this offseason?
I think A.J. Brown is likely heading out of town here. Even just if you look at the end of last season and his attitude and demeanor in post-game press conferences, when he was on the bench, like, he seems checked out of this team, and I think he's gone. I think he's out of here. Now, the impact that has, that's a really interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles are, I don't think I would want to be the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, mainly because that's a job where you get regular death threats from the people of Philadelphia, because that city is insane, as we all know.
Accurate.
Um, but they have had a really, really weird offense in the last year or so. It seems like they have one thing that they do, and they just routinely just pound that same concept and same scheme with very little creativity, very little variety. And it's baffling in that they've had all of these weapons and they've had all of these options, and they've been so one note in how they run things there. Now, if they can bring a little creativity, I think that more than balances out, losing a talent like AJ Brown, because they still have such a wealth of riches there, right? From the quarterback to the running back room to the wide receivers that are still there, they've got more than enough pieces. So I think coaching is probably the biggest thing that's going to have an impact on this team.
And on that point, they obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but they did decide to fire their offensive coordinator, who was a Nick Sirianni hire. It feels like there's this push and pull over the past 5 years or so, where when the Eagles are doing really well, Sirianni gets to bring in his next hires, and when they do really poorly, the general manager, his name's escaping me right now, Howie Roseman, he gets to make the hires, and when he makes the hires, they do really well and go to Super Bowls, and then they get poached. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, the cycle continues. Nick Sirianni says, "Well, maybe let me bring in my guys." And I
Mm-hmm.
think this team is certainly at the top of the pyramid when it comes to all-time bad vibes right now. I think that's a fair thing to say. AJ Brown being sour, Jeff Stoutland, who is literally the best offensive line coach in the league, just quit. Like, he got up
Yeah.
and left a room mid-meeting and said, "I'm out of here." And whatever team decides to pick him up is grateful that the Eagles are such a mess, because this guy turned a seventh round rugby player into one of the best left tackles in Mayada. And like, he's part of the, like, yes, they've drafted very well at the offensive line, but he when he's in charge, and he's in charge of the scheme when it comes to the run game, things did really well. And I think that's why he left this offseason, was because Sirianni said, "You're not in charge of that anymore. I'm going to be in charge of the schematic of the run game," which was a, and I don't blame the guy. Like, he's his accolades speak for themselves. So if Dick
Yeah.
Sirianni wants to be Nick Sirianni, then go ahead, see how that works out.
It's a hilarious thing to me. So our new league mate, Jack, colleague of mine, is a diehard Eagles fan. And
Okay.
if you heard him talk about Sirianni, you would swear that he is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, coaches in NFL history. However, he is very much not.
He's also one of the most
It's
winningest.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think one of the things with the Eagles is just that they've been so good, and, they are, just a year or so removed from winning it all. Um, the expectations are just sky high. They're through the roof there. And that's a very hard thing for anybody to be living up to on a repeated basis in a league as competitive as the NFL is. But I think they have all the pieces to reach that again. I would not be surprised if a year from now we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles as, once again being Super Bowl champions. I think they have everything that they need to pull that off, and it's a matter of, can they mentally do that? And like you said about the vibes being so bad there, vibes are real. Vibes are real low right now, man.
Yeah. So they draft at the 23rd pick in the NFL draft. Tankathon has them taking right tackle out of Alabama, Caden Proctor. Would you agree with a pick like that, or where do you think the Eagles should go if they were going to keep this pick in the first round?
Yeah, so tackle would be a good option there. They could look to do something else on defense as well to try and make up for some of the pieces that they've lost as well, replace a blanket chip or something like that as well. I don't mind them taking a tackle though at all.
What about wide receiver to replace AJ Brown if they do decide to move off him?
I think you hold off on that. I think they have enough talent there right now.
Who would be their wide
That's
receiver?
not
Who would be their wide receiver two, behind Devontae Smith then?
Dallas Goddard, obviously.
I didn't think of that. Of course.
That's why you're keeping him, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know that you're doing that with your first round pick.
Okay. All right.
Um, I think that's the kind of thing where you can maybe get a round two guy to come in there and add some depth, or that's the kind of thing that you could address through a trade, right?
Okay.
So
All right. I don't mind that. Let's get to our next team here, which are the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of their moves this offseason have been on the defensive side of the ball, so we can talk about that a little bit. But I think the biggest things that we should talk about are them deciding to re-sign Javonte Williams, and of course they've tagged George Pickens. So
mhm.
the Jerry Jones circus strikes once again. Where do you want to start here, Bobby? Between these two?
It's let's talk about these wide receivers, because I think this, from a fantasy standpoint, is a really, really interesting conversation. So I pulled up my wide receiver rankings
Mm-hmm.
here. And currently I have CD Lamb ranked number 4 in a redraft league situation, and George Pickens ranked number 10.
Ooh,
Um,
spicy.
what do you think about that? Do you think that's accurate? Do you think that maybe that should be flipped? Is there a world Pickens should be taken over CD Lamb?
No, I don't think I'm ready to do that, and I don't think most fantasy analysts are either. I think CeeDee Lamb was beat up a lot of last season, and George Pickens did exactly what they brought him in to do, which is if CeeDee Lamb goes down, we still have a type A that we can throw to at any in any situation who can create explosives.
Mm-hmm.
So, I who do you have above CeeDee Lamb, and if he's your number four?
Chase, Puka Nakua, and JSN.
Okay, okay, interesting. See, I have him a little bit lower. I would even take Amon-Ra St. Brown above him at this point, and that's just
I have them neck and neck.
okay. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
I think that CeeDee Lamb's versatility lends itself very well. The yak ability is always going to be there. He usually puts up like 200 or 300 yards as a rusher in this offense as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very comfortable CeeDee Lamb being a first round pick in redraft or even dynasty startup drafts. I think he is just so dynamic, and he's only 2 seasons removed from being the very clear cut wide receiver one.
Yes. Yeah,
So
I think we need to not forget about that when we're having these conversations. But
precisely.
it is interesting. It is an interesting dynamic that they're going to have two like such alpha wide receivers in that room, and it'll be interesting on a week to week basis who actually gets to eat as well.
Absolutely. It could be a Jamar Chase and T Higgins kind of situation. I kind of see that being the scenario if CeeDee Lamb stays
Mm-hmm.
healthy, and if
Mm-hmm.
they like both of them have that extra tier or like extra gear, I should say. If one of them does go down, then you see those consistent top five
Mm-hmm.
performances on a week to week basis from either one of them. So yeah, I would be. I think I've said this before. I think CeeDee Lamb's a good middle to back end of the first round pick, and I like George Pickens towards the back end of the second is where I would be comfortable taking him there. Kind of where I've taken
Okay,
T Higgins in earlier years.
that's
And
fair. That's
and hope
fair.
yeah. The defensive side, the defensive line gets a little bit of a facelift. They lose a couple guys, but they bring a couple guys in.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in 2 new linebackers, I believe, and they're probably looking to add one in the draft as well, I would imagine. And they can do something like that when you have the 12th and 20th picks in the first round. Um, where are we looking for this team to go with those picks, Bobby? Or do you think they're maybe looking at making a move?
I think you got to be taking defense with those picks. I feel like I'm preaching defense a lot, and maybe you're seeing the fact that I coach defense in high school football. But yeah, I would like to see them add to that linebacker crew that they have there, because that looks like an amount of a hole. They could use a corner. They could use another player on the line. Yeah, I wouldn't be upset if they took almost exclusively defensive players in this draft.
Hmm.
I think that would be not a dumb thing for them to be doing.
I wonder if they package these to move up, if they really want to get aggressive to get one of the top players in the draft. But
There's
lot,
a world where you could do that too.
I think Jerry Jones, he, people give him a lot of crap, but he's actually pretty good at this stuff. And sitting and waiting, I've heard this before. When it comes to this draft specifically, this is a draft where you kind of do want to sit and wait and see what falls to you. Then you can just take the value, right? I've seen Mansour
Hmm.
Delane, who's a corner, a very highly sought after corner out of LSU, go to them at number 12, and then I think they can have some fun with number 20. Like if they want to go, I mean, you're not going running back, but you could go another receiver if you don't think you're going to be able to pay George Pickens next year, if you don't want to re-tag him. So that's certainly a possibility. Um, but yeah, I think you're right. Like the defense still needs a lot of work. So I wouldn't be surprised if both
Hmm.
those picks turn into edge rushers and they see who comes out from that bunch.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart thing for them to be doing.
Okay, excellent. That's the Dallas Cowboys. Let's get into the Washington Commanders, who, again, a lot of the free agency stuff that they've done was on the defensive side of the ball. They bring in, is it Mafe? No, they brought in an edge rusher. They bring in, I can never get this guy's name right. They bring in Chase on,
Chiazon.
yep, from the Patriots as a free agent. Um, And then on the offensive side of the ball, some, I guess, nice pieces to add. So they bring in a Rashad White, which as I mentioned, I don't think excludes them from the Jeremiah Love sweepstakes if he does fall to them. And they also bring in Chiga Quankwo as a athletic
Chigo.
type. Yeah, Chigo.
Yeah.
So anything you want to talk about here?
I think they're kind of a team that is in an interesting position. A lot is going to hinge on Jaden Daniels and him coming back healthy and how he looks. He carried that team in a lot of ways in his rookie year and was really a revelation for him. Just the athletic ability that he showed, his ability to rush the ball, his ability to move the ball downfield just brought such a dynamic to them that they were able to make their way into the playoffs and look competitive against the Eagles. I mean, it didn't come out on top in the playoffs, but they were able to do that in the regular season against the Eagles. So I really would like them to add more at the wide receiver area. They've got Terry McLaurin, and I think in terms of fantasy value, I think you got to remember Terry McLaurin here this year.
Very good point.
Don't sleep on him. If Daniels is back healthy and if they don't do anything significant to upgrade at that position, then he's the guy there, and he will eat. But I do think that bringing in an Ayuk, for instance, is something that would really help them.
Jaden Daniels' best buddy, Brandon Ayuk, apparently a front runner. The Commanders are, I should say, a front runner for landing Ayuk. I've heard rumors of it going to be more like a 1 year prove it deal, and then we'll give you the bag if things work out. But you got
Mm-hmm.
to be skeptical with a guy who acted the way he did in that last year in San Francisco. Chiga Quanko, nice depth piece. Kind of blocks
Mm-hmm.
it blocks Ben Sennett from being a thing, and Zach Ertz apparently wants to come back and play again at some point,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know how many times this guy wants to get hurt and lose a season just for him to come back. And he's like 30. He's like the same age as us. He's like 35,
Yeah, I know
36.
he's which we're old, Paul.
Oh,
So
I feel it every day. Um,
yeah.
so
Jake's a nice piece for them just in terms of his blocking ability too. He will help to shore things up along that line in front of Jaden Daniels as well.
yeah, and we've mentioned the receiver room. We haven't talked about Debo Samuel likely departing. I don't think they're going to keep
Mm-hmm.
him around with how he performed and just his age and durability and actual
Mm-hmm.
performance is kind of deteriorating quickly with what he's
I
done in his
honestly
career.
forgot to mention him because I've already
We've
regarded him
all
as not being part of the team
everyone's
anymore.
everyone's moved on from Debo. Uh,
Yeah.
and like I said, I think Rashad White, it does not prohibit you from taking Jeremiah Love if he should fall. But
Mm-hmm.
if they don't land him, um, then Rashad White's a capable pass blocker, a good pass catcher, decent in the run game. That's the best thing I can say about it. But I don't think he's moving any chain. Like he's not moving the dial for these guys all that
They
much.
don't need a crazy like a crazy amount of talent there because they have a quarterback that's that threat himself, right?
Yeah.
As long as you have someone who's competent and can keep, you know, keep the defense honest, then you have that X factor of your quarterback being your best rusher, right?
Fair. Yep. Totally fair.
Now, would you like to have more than just competency? Yes, of course, obviously. But I think they could get it done with a Rashad White.
Yeah, I think after this past season, I don't think they're going to want Daniels to run as much as he has over his first 2 seasons. So,
No, probably not. That's
yeah,
another factor as well, just for the sake of his health. Yeah.
yeah. So, to White's, to his credit, he has been durable. He's been mostly productive. I mean, he probably got the short end of the stick when Bucky Irving arrived in Tampa Bay, but he's been a productive back. And if they don't bring anybody in to challenge him for that number one role, then he's going to be fantasy relevant in some way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
PPR bucket machine maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And they're picking seventh, so I've said Jeremiah Love's name a bunch of times. Defense
Yeah.
probably still needs some pieces. I would love to see a Sony Styles land here. Like he would be the
Ooh.
perfect piece for this defense to kind of bring it all together. Or
Yeah.
a Caleb Downs perhaps, but I don't know if they're going to go safety with all the needs they have. So, what are you thinking at that 7 spot?
I think it is. This is one of those cases where you go with best player available and talent because everything that you said would be a great boon to the team. So you just see who's there and you take a future star in whatever position they happen to be in, and then you work from there in the future, and both in future rounds of the draft this year and in future years as well. So if you can bring in a absolute stud linebacker who's going to be the anchor of your defense for many years to come, you do that, right? If you get someone who's going to be a just core running back machine for you for the next few years, you do that. It's just take the talent, take what you can get in terms of best player available.
Yeah, and I know you're a big believer in Jaden Daniels, so if things go right and he can stay healthy, they're probably not drafting this high again for quite some time, right?
Yeah,
So
probably not. I mean, again, that's putting a lot on Jaden Daniels, his health. Um, but I think with him, like he is one of those. Let me just get on my soapbox about
yeah,
Jaden Daniels
you're
here for a
allowed.
second again, because I biasly had him in Dynasty, and he won me a championship 2 years ago. But he is one of those X factor players that can put a team on his back and carry a team with his ability as well. So I think should he be healthy and if he can replicate what he did in his rookie season, then they're going to be a team that is in the conversation for sure,
Yep.
and probably will surprise some teams as well.
Yeah, I think this division is going to end up being one of the more competitive ones when this offseason's all said and done. All these teams making some splashes in free agency
Mhm.
on all the areas they needed. That seems to be the case. Now, let's round it out with the lowly New York Giants, who I think have had one of the more interesting off seasons, to be honest. They bring in Isaiah Likely. Well, I guess I should start with they fired Brian Daboll during the season. They bring in John Harbaugh, who seems to be chief and commander,
Yeah.
commander in chief, I should say, in that building now. Joe Shane, probably not long for this world in the Giants world, but they bring in Isaiah Likely. They bring in Patrick Ricard, who's a fullback from the Ravens as well. I think they bring in a punter from the Ravens as well as part of their free agency frenzy there, and you have to feel good. Like we've already talked about Darnell Mooney signing there as well. You have to feel much better with this team moving ahead with Malik Neighbors, Isaiah Likely, Theo Johnson, the tandem they have at running back. A lot of these teams in their actions seem to think that Jeremiah Love is not making it past 7 at the most. So he could be a landing spot here for the Giants at number 5,
Mhm.
much to every
Yeah.
Scadaboo owners' dismay. But
I mean, as someone who loves Cam Scadaboo, I just imagine him and Jeremiah Love just like conk, button heads, and then
oh
just
yeah,
going out there and trucking people.
yeah,
Um,
you got to feel good about the offense. Is my point.
I mean, so this is almost the complete opposite to the Eagles, where vibes are low.
Vibes are
Vibes are
immaculate.
vibes are good in New
Vibes are
York right
immaculate in
now.
New York.
They are absolutely loving the changes that have happened with this team. And I think this is a team that is very much headed in the right direction. I love the coaching change. Um, yeah, drafting fifth overall, they're going to be bringing in an impact player. Maybe a Sunny Styles could
Maybe.
fit nicely there, start to shore things up on the other side of the ball. But yeah, Harbaugh is definitely making his stamp on this team. You kind of briefly mentioned it, but bringing in Pat Ricard, say as a fullback too. This screams this is a team that is just going to run the fuck over you.
Yeah, I think
I'm
when
excited.
yeah, it's you're absolutely right. I think when you look at the state of the offense, the pass catchers are improved, but I think if you want to really embody what John Harbaugh is going to want this team to look like and how you make Jackson Dart's life that much easier is by having a really efficient run game. And when you're playing outside in New York in that terrible stadium and
Mm-hmm.
it's impossible to throw the ball in the middle of November, you want to be able to
Mm-hmm.
lean on Cam Scadaboo and whatever running backs they decide to bring in as well, and just get behind Patrick Ricard, who's almost 300 pounds as a fullback, and just go to work, right? Like,
Yeah,
put your head down,
absolutely.
as Cam Scadaboo would say. You just put your head down and go to work. And you bring in Isaiah Likely, who I think is a nice replacement for Wandale Robinson. They just wanted to get bigger, right? Like
Yeah.
they want to get rid of this nonsense that they've been dealing with over the past couple of years with these tiny guys. Like, you go big. Like, they can have two tight ends on the field now with Isaiah Likely. And instead of Wandale Robinson being that slot presence, now you have Isaiah Likely, who's a dynamic playmaker in his own right. With
Yeah.
he's probably three Wandale Robinsons in terms of size. And
Yeah, probably pretty close.
and you, like I said, you just lean on the run game, let Jackson Dart take some time to develop and get comfortable in a system and an offense, and then
Mhm.
he's got pass catchers who can make plays.
Let's talk about Jackson Dart for a second here
Yeah,
too, just in terms of developing and getting comfortable. He looked comfortable last year, even, and he dealt with some injuries himself, but he showed a lot of game once he won that role. And for the few weeks there was only a couple weeks of the season where they kind of settled into Jackson Dart was the starter. Cam Scadaboo had won the job as well and was their leading rusher. But in those few weeks, they looked good.
yeah.
And that was, I believe, at that point, Malik Neighbors had already gone down to injury. So we haven't really had a chance to look at this team in a healthy condition with what they had last year, and they've added to it. So yeah, there's a reason vibes are high. I'm really excited about the direction this team's going.
So they won 4 games last year. A lot of people have them as a dark horse in this race when it comes to this division specifically as well. Are they one of the teams that could just simply go from like last to like worst to first in a division? Could they win 11 games?
They're still in the same division as the Eagles, and I am still going to put a lot of confidence in the Eagles to be very good because just compare the lineups, right?
Yep.
It's the Eagles. Having said that, I would not be surprised if they finish second in this division and are in a playoff spot.
Okay. I have a similar inkling, I think, and I like the moves they've made. I like the direction they're heading. I love the vibes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I could watch Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo do their thing every week. Like, it's good for the NFL if those guys can just
It's
stay
great for the
healthy.
NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be great entertainment, and I think at worst they're going to be a really fun team to turn on a Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and just oh, my Packers aren't playing here; they play in the 4 o'clock game. Who am I going to watch at 1 o'clock? Oh, let's watch the Giants game.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, man. Um, that's awesome. And that's going to do it for us, everybody. Bobby and I have to skedaddle. We have a bunch of guys waiting for us to play board games online. So we're going to go do that as well. We love football, but we also love board games. So
Absolutely.
we are going to do that. But we appreciate you for watching if you made it this far. Like and subscribe if you haven't. I should really say that at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to try to make a point of that.
They've watched all the way through to the end and they've enjoyed it. So, we've earned the like and subscribe at this point, right?
Yeah, you're just being foolish if you haven't done so yet. So appreciate everybody for watching. Thank you, Bobby, for hopping on. It was an absolute blast talking through this division and everything with you. And that's going to do it for us, folks. Until next time, peace.